You're listening to Civil War and Ghost Stories. I'm your host, Stevie Bartow, and this is where history gets spooky. In each episode, we will dive deep into the dark and dynamic past, serving up short and captivating stories. Expect a fascinating balance of Civil War legends and haunting ghost stories that are sure to intrigue and fascinate. Thank you so much for tuning in. There on Spotify. Tonight's episode takes us into the depths of a mysterious and haunting Civil War tale three times over. It's the story of the H.L. Hunley, a Confederate submarine that made history by becoming the first combat sub to sink an enemy warship. But what happened after that? How could a vessel that achieved such a remarkable feat simply disappear without a trace, along with its crew and the secrets they held? Rumors of spectral blue lights seen on the water and whispers of ghostly figures haunting the wreckage have also fueled legends surrounding the Hunley. This episode uncovers the enigmas surrounding the Hunley's fate, leaving you wondering, could it have been damage from combat, a mechanical failure, or something even more extraordinary? Most of the fighting during the American Civil War took place on Southern soil. For the South, survival meant victory. For the North, restoring the Union required conquest. Early in the war, Union General Winfield Scott proposed a strategy to strangle the Confederacy economically by blockading its ports. The press mocked it as the Anaconda Plan, but it proved devastatingly effective. By 1861, President Lincoln had declared a blockade on Southern ports, aiming to cut off exports such as cotton, tobacco, and prevent military supplies from reaching the Confederacy. The blockade stretched over 3,500 miles of coastline and 12 major ports. It starved the South of food and supplies as essential items like coffee, tea, spices, dairy, and even salt became scarce. Prices soared, with coffee costing as much as $10 a pound, which would be between $190 and $230 in today's money. A soldier named James from South Carolina wrote in his diary, "We had to resort to making coffee from roasted corn, a pale substitute that hardly comforted us, but was somewhat better than none." Charleston, South Carolina, was hit especially hard. Bombarded from 1863 to 1865, its downtown became known as the Shell District. When Jefferson Davis visited in 1863, he declared it was better to leave Charleston a heap of ruins than to surrender. So, we're going to shift gears a little bit back. We're going to enter into the story Horace Lawson Hunley. Horace Lawson Hunley was born in 1823 in Tennessee, and he was raised in New Orleans. He was a lawyer turned marine engineer. When Louisiana joined the Confederacy, Hunley saw an opportunity to help break the Union blockade. And also, he saw an opportunity to possibly earn the $50,000 bounty that was offered for sinking a Union ship. He partnered with engineers James R. McClintock and Baxter Watson to build the Pioneer, which was an experimental submarine. But when Union forces captured New Orleans, they had to scuttle the vessel and flee to Mobile, Alabama. There, they ended up building the American Diver, which experimented with steam and electric propulsion before finally settling on a hand cranked system. The diver sank during a test run in rough seas, though the crew was able to escape. Undeterred from this mishaps, Hunley began working on a third submarine. This one was larger, with a 9-man crew. It successfully sank a barge in Mobile Harbor during a demonstration for General P.G.T. Beauregard, despite having multiple accidents during testing that ultimately claimed 5 lives. Beauregard ordered Horace Hunley's sub to Charleston, hoping it could help break up the blockade surrounding the harbor. The vessel, still unnamed, was referred to as the Fishboat or the Porpoise. Now, here's the first disaster. On August 29, 1863, Lieutenant John A. Payne and 7 volunteers from CSS Chicora and Palmetto State prepared for a night attack. But tragedy would strike before they could even launch. The Porpoise, later referred to as the Hunley, sank, possibly due to a passing steamer's wake, or it could have been entanglement in dock lines, or it could have been a mishaps on the diving lever. We don't know, but it was horrible. 5 crewmen drowned. 3 were able to survive, including Charles Hasker. He was able to escape after being trapped by a hatch cover and riding the submarine all the way to the bottom before being able to get out of it and swim to the surface. Divers Angus Smith and David Broadfoot, clad in 200-pound canvas suits, recovered the Hunley from the harbor floor. The 5 men lost were Michael Kane, Nicholas Davis, Frank Doyle, John Kelly, and Absalom Williams. After repairs, Hunley himself took command to restore confidence. On October 15, 1863, he led a test dive beneath the CSS Indian Chief. The submarine vanished. Weeks later, divers found the Hunley buried in the harbor mud. Inside, the crew were eerily frozen in place. Hunley was still clutching a candle. The forward ballast tank valve had been left open, and the wrench to close it lay on the floor. The crew had tried to escape, but unfortunately, it was too late. This would mark the second disaster involving Horace Hunley's submarine, which ultimately took the engineer of the project with it. The second crew included, of course, Horace Hunley himself, Robert Brockbank, Joseph Patterson, Thomas W. Park, Charles McHugh, Henry Baird, John Marshall, and Charles L. Sprague. Despite 2 deadly sinkings, the Hunley was once again raised. General Beauregard was hesitant this time, calling it more dangerous to those who use it than to the enemy. 2 passionate officers, Lieutenant George E. Dixon and William Alexander, believed in the Hunley's potential. The submarine's attack method was revised. Instead of towing a floating explosive, it now carried a spar torpedo. The plan? Ram the enemy ship, detonate the torpedo, and then back away. But with only 16 feet between the crew and the explosion, it was a deadly gamble. A new crew volunteered: Lieutenant George E. Dixon, Arnold Becker, Corporal J. F. Carlson, Frank Collins, C. Lumpkin, Miller, James A. Wicks, and Joseph Ridgeway. They started their training in Charleston's harbor, often gliding silently past Union ships, close enough to hear the soldiers singing. But rough seas delayed their mission until one moonlit night in February 1864. On February 17, 1864, the Hunley set out from Breach Inlet, between Isle of Palms and Sullivan's Island, to attack one of Union's newest warships. At 8:45 p.m., Union sailors spotted a strange object slowly approaching in the water. Without proper spotlights and with no aid from the moon, it was next to impossible to distinguish what was out there. Thinking it was a dolphin or maybe a log, the crew didn't sound the alarm or open fire until it was much too late. The Hunley rammed the Housatonic with its spar torpedo. A massive explosion tore through the ship's starboard side. The warship USS Housatonic sank in less than 5 minutes. 5 of its 155 crewmen died. The names of those poor souls aboard are Edward C. Hazelton, John Williams, Theodore Parker, Charles O. Muzzy, and George F. Dixon. A letter from a surviving crew member, published in the Boston Herald and reprinted in the Charleston Mercury, described the chaos. A long object was described astern on the ship. In an instant the alarm sounded. The torpedo exploded under her starboard quarter, making a most frightful report. The vessel sank in 6 fathoms of water. Men were struggling in the icy water. Officers were trying to get the boats loose. The Housatonic was a total loss. 45 minutes later, a Union sailor claimed to see a blue light on the water, which was possibly the Hunley's signal to shore. Confederate troops lit a fire to guide her home. But the Hunley never returned home. Stories have later emerged of mysterious figures appearing near the water's edge, whispering voices carried by the wind. Local legends spoke of spectral sailors roaming the island, their lanterns glowing an eerie blue, searching for a way back to shore. The eerie tales added a supernatural layer to the enigma of the Hunley's final mission, fueling a mix of historical intrigue and ghostly rumors that endure to this day. Search efforts for the Hunley began almost immediately. The Union dredged the area around the Housatonic wreck, and generations of explorers have searched in vain. Finally, on May 3, 1995, author Clive Cussler and his team found the Hunley using a magnemeter. Diving into 30 feet of water, they uncovered one of the sub's conning towers beneath 3 feet of sediment. On August 8, 2000, the Hunley was raised from the sea after 136 years. Spectators, including my own grandfather, lined the Charleston's harbor to witness history. The submarine was placed in a 75,000-gallon tank at the Warren Lash Conservation Center, where researchers began uncovering her secrets. When the Hunley was discovered, inside, the crew was found still seated at their stations, frozen in time. On April 17, 2004, the Hunley's crew was laid to rest in a solemn ceremony. Celebrations led a 4.5-mile procession through Charleston to Magnolia Cemetery, where the 8 men were buried beside Horace Hunley and the other crew members who died during earlier missions. When the Hunley submarine disappeared without a trace and the crew was lost at sea, for many years their fate remained a mystery. The men's families were left without closure and, in most cases, without financial support. Since most of the crew were from southern states like Alabama and South Carolina, their families were likely already struggling due to the hardships of the Civil War and died without ever knowing what happened to their loved ones. So, some theories of the Hunley's fate. To this day, the cause of the Hunley's final sinking remains a mystery. Popular theories include torpedo damage. The explosion inflicted by the Hunley onto the Housatonic may have compromised the hull of the Hunley, rendering it unable to continue its return home. There's another theory called the concussion theory, which is the close proximity to the blast could have knocked the crew unconscious and they eventually died from lack of oxygen. There's the lucky shot theory, which is a bullet from a crew member aboard the Housatonic may have struck the sub in just the right spot to provide lethal damage to the crew inside. And then lastly, the suffocation theory. The crew may have run out of air before surfacing, taking in too much CO2 and suffering from asphyxiation. Now, my favorite theory? Well, it's my grandpa's. Have a listen. Hi, Grandpa.
Well, hello, Stevie.
How are you doing?
Very good.
Good. So, yeah, I just wanted to talk to you about Civil War and the Hunley and
Yes.
get your thoughts on it.
All right. Well, they were all found at their positions,
Right,
right?
right.
Right. So they had to have had some deadly gas or something that just killed them instantly.
Right, yeah.
probably somebody or multiple people cut the cheese and they all passed out and died.
Oh my gosh, Grandpa. Are you serious?
Well, it's better than anything I've heard.
Wow. Cut the cheese. Oh man. Well, that's one way to do it.
Yeah.
So, in closing, that concludes episode 18 of Civil War and Ghost Stories. We're well on our way to 20 episodes and hopefully 10 reviews on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy lives to support and listen. It means the absolute world to me. I also want to hear from you, so drop a comment in the episode sharing your thoughts on what you think happened to the Hunley crew, which theory makes the most sense to you, and put yourself in their shoes. Would you have gotten onto the Hunley knowing that it sank 2 times before that? I don't know that I would. I think they were kind of crazy, but desperation makes people do crazy things. To learn more about the Hunley, I highly recommend visiting the Hunley Museum today. You can visit Magnolia Cemetery in Charleston to see the graves of all 21 souls lost aboard the Hunley. And on weekends, you can tour the actual submarine at the H.L. Hunley Museum in North Charleston. I've been there with my grandpa, who shares my passion for Civil War history. We love discussing battles, figures of the Civil War, and theories about the Hunley's final moments. As the night tide rolls in and the world quiet downs, may peace anchor your heart and inspiration flow freely. Thanks for spending this time with me. Your presence means more than you know. Until next time, keep listening, keep growing, and keep searching for the lessons in history. I promise you that they're there. Join me next time for a haunting Carolina tale, and as always, take care of yourself. Goodbye, my friends.